Hi, the Mudbrooker here. Everybody loves a mystery, and if you deal with cast iron for any length of time, you're going to come across something that you just cannot identify. Before I get underway, I would like to thank my patrons on Patreon, Kay's Kist, Benedict Riggers, Joy Jones, and Tiarna Jenkins. Your support is greatly appreciated, and if anybody would like to join them, you're more than welcome to. Anyway, as I was saying, you're going to come across unmarked pans. Some of them are fairly well known, like unmarked Wagnerware pans, and even though they don't have a name on them, you can still tell who made them. But these guys are something of a mystery. This one here is actually kind of a known unknown. They call these Southern Mystery Skillets. They're easily enough identified. They have a raised number 8 on the handle. They have really small pour spouts. And even though they're a number 8, let me show you something. They're actually a good bit smaller than most number 8 pans. They call them Southern Mystery Skillets because for the most part you find them in the southern United States, and that's also where they were made. Now most of these were made by local blacksmiths, as far as anybody can tell, but they all use pretty much the same pattern, and they're all kind of similar. They're a bit heavy for their size, and they tend to be a little crude. You can see there's some voids in the casting there. You know, some little rough spots there. Over here you can see some more voids. They're hand cast, and like I say, they were all made from the same pattern. The reason for that isn't quite clear, but I think it's because some manufacturer of blacksmith and forge supplies got the idea that they could sell patterns for making cast ironware, like skillets and pots and such, to their customers, because building a furnace to remelt pig iron is fairly easy and inexpensive. Also, in the South at the time, transportation wasn't the best. It was a pretty rural area for the most part throughout the South. And it was a lot easier for a local blacksmith to simply make a pan rather than trying to order one up and paying a lot more. So they could have a pretty good market for hand-cast, locally made pans. You can see it looks kind of like a crack there, but that's not a crack, that's actually a raised line. There may have been a crack in the pattern that they used, and if you look closely, hopefully the light will show it, you can see some grinder marks. Those are also in the pattern and not the pan itself, because if they were, they would have ground off that line. That's simply the way it was made. I imagine the blacksmith who did it reground the pattern as it wore. You can see it's kind of lopsided. It's thinner on this side and a lot thicker over here. And I suspect that as the pattern wore, he simply reground it. Now, most of them have no markings at all on the back, but some of them do have initials or logos of the person who made them, but who they actually are is lost to time. My next mystery pan, I'll get to this guy later. This one is sort of the opposite of that Southern Mystery pan. It has really big pour spouts. It's very thin, it's very light. It's a lot better made, but it still has some casting flaws in it, like along there, and along there you can see there's some sand shift. That's from the sand and the mold moving before they actually pour it. And on the inside you can see some pits. Those I think are casting voids. But it's a lot better made than the Southern Mystery pans, and I think this was probably made in an actual foundry. It was fairly common practice for stove manufacturers to make pots and skillets, and most of them were unmarked. They would include them as a either a bonus or a little extra upsell when you bought a new cast iron cook stove. This one is pretty unusual. It has the size number on the back side of the handle. I haven't seen that before on anything else. I have seen on, this is a Wapak skillet. Wapak was known to put pattern letters on the back of the handle, but the only thing I've ever seen besides this skillet that has a size number on the handle is some older griddles, round griddles, made by just about everybody. Not all of them do, but some do have a size number on the back of the handle. The style of the handle of this is fairly common for skillets made before about 1920, 25 or so, and it's a beautiful little pan. But, like I say, I'll probably never know exactly who made this thing. My next one, let me set him aside, is kind of a medium weight. It's a bit heavy, but not extremely so. And as you can see, it has number 8 and 3 dots on it. It has an old style handle. It has a little bit of a reinforcement around it there. And the heat ring on it, I don't think is really intended to be a heat ring so much as it's the rim of the logo plate. Some makers, this Pequaware here is a good example. You can see this kind of raised part that flattens out. Rather than simply putting their name or logo on the pattern, they would make a pattern that had a recess in the bottom, and they would put the logo on a plate and set that in the recess, and then use the pattern to make the molds. This allowed manufacturers to make pans under different brand names or no name at all, and it was a lot cheaper for them because the lettering on the logo would tend to wear out long before the rest of the pattern would, and it was a simple matter of putting a different logo plate on there, and it was a lot easier to make a logo plate than it was to rework the pattern. This one also, if I can get the light just right, up in this top area here, it looks like something had been filled in and then ground off a bit. But even so, I can't really tell who might have made this. It's a kind of a generic little pan. It's not really hugely heavy, but it's not exceptionally light either. So, I'll probably never figure out who made this pan either. Well, there you have it. As you get into looking at and collecting cast iron, you're bound to come across some of these pans that you never will figure out who made them. But in any event, they're still nice pans to have. All of these are really good cooking pans. Some of them are worth a little bit. The Southern Mystery skillets are pretty collectible. There's a fair demand for them. And ones that have initials or logos or maker's marks on the back sell for a good bit more than ones that don't. So if you come across something, even if you don't know who made it, doesn't mean it ain't worth having. Well, thank you much. I'll make my dog quit barking later on because he's just got to disturb my video, and I'll talk to you later.